Hey everyone, good morning. This is Lori Delk-Radecki with the Nashville Networking Business Luncheons. And so we do these every single week all over Middle Tennessee as well as online. So in person, we have the first Friday is Cool Springs, the second Friday is Green Hills, the third Thursday is Spring Hill, the third Friday is Hendersonville, the fourth Friday is Murfreesboro. And then every single Tuesday, we are right here live on Zoom. So if you are more mobile, getting out in the world, you are welcome to join us at our in-person meetings. If you are not doing that yet, or even if you are, you want an addition, you can join us for our live meetings here on Zoom every week. We always have a 10 to 15-minute speaker who talks to us about different tips, tricks, ideas, things that can help us both in our personal as well as our business life to help get us to that next level. After that, we go around the room and everybody has 1 minute to give us your name, what you do for a living, and how we can better refer other people to you. So we are going to go ahead and get started. So our speaker today is Miss Jessie Lee Perez. Please give her your attention.
Thank you so much, Lori. It's really great to be able to come and speak with you all today. And I know that what you're going to hear today, it's really going to give you some great nuggets that you can take away and start to really kind of rethink some of the things that you're doing in a slightly different way to really be able to kind of level you up with that. If you have a notepad, I highly recommend grabbing it because I'm not going to give you surface level stuff. I'm actually going to give you some pretty good meat. So you'll want to kind of jot some notes down. The topic that I'm talking on is kind of bridging the gap between processes and people. And I'm going to touch on that in a few different ways because both processes and people are really important whatever kind of organization we have. And so, we've been going through a lot of turbulent times. And so we felt that in our personal lives, we felt that in our businesses, and some businesses in some really more impactful ways than others. But nobody has missed that we're going through turbulent times. And so, as we think of boosting our immune system personally, in our physical bodies, we also need to think about boosting our immune system within our businesses. And so that looks and feels a little bit different than running operations on an everyday basis. And so when we think about kind of that idea of what is our strategy? What is our business strategy? A lot of people think that they have a business strategy, but what they're really doing is they're implementing operations, calling it a strategy. And so I want to call out two specific terms as we start to kind of dissect the idea of bridging this gap between processes and people. And so the first term is strategic, okay? And the second term is tactical. So a lot of people think that, when you have something that you're focused on in your business and you're creating a plan for it, that is a strategic plan. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And so the idea of where strategy comes in is when you're looking at the big picture, okay? Once you start getting down into the details and focusing on specific things, you're becoming tactical. And so I'm going to break this down in a little bit easier way to digest. So when you look at your organization, you're going to be looking at your organization as a whole and saying, where am I trying to go? Okay. So and let's kind of understand how to understand where you're trying to go. So first, you have to understand where you are. Then you understand where you want to be. And then you create a plan to connect the two. A lot of times people will just start with where they want to be and start creating all these little projects and all these little strategic movements, right, to get to where they want to be. But what they haven't stopped to take a look at is, well, where am I right now? It's kind of like a GPS, okay? So most people have used a GPS. A lot of people use it every day. You plug in where you want to go and it takes you there. What you don't maybe think about is that it can't take you there if it doesn't know where you are. Your GPS is programmed to know where you are. So it has that little bit of data. And then you tell it where it wants to go, and it says, oh, I can connect the lines. I can take you from point A to point B. Our businesses are the same way. You have to understand where you are to effectively get to where you're going. And so if you have not had taken time to actually evaluate your current situation, where am I currently? What is my financial resiliency? What are my relationships, both clients, partnerships, internal? What is my organizational structure? Is this the type of structure that makes sense for the kind of business that I'm running? Do I have the people in the places within my organization they are what they're supposed to be right now? Technology, right? That's another piece. Do I have or do I need technology? Is there places where I'm feeling some strain because it's all manual? There's no automation. Like, I'll tell you, that is most small businesses, because they don't think about technology except for as an after fact, instead of how can technology actually be part of what makes me do what I do better, right? And then you have growth, right? And everybody's always thinking about growth and forgetting all this other stuff. And so the idea though is that you want to have an idea of, like, are you growing like you're supposed to? Or do you feel like you're reaching out and hitting your markets? Are you only focused on one, and is that where you're supposed to be? Like, understanding where you are in that growth, and understanding where were you last year, where are you today, that's going to give you your current, right? And so taking time to evaluate your current business situation, then you have a map of that, and you're not going to just think about this. You're literally going to write this out. You're going to document this. There's a thing called a current flow process, current state process, and these are things that you get templates for, and you can fill out, or you can just even start to bullet point and start to build on this. There's a lot of different ways, but you need to actually get it on paper, because it's not until you get it in black and white that you're really going to be able to put those pieces together and understand them. Okay, then you can understand, hey, let's talk about where we want to go. A lot of people say, I have an idea of where I want to go. I have no idea how to get there. Well, once you understand where you are, you can start to draft where you want to be. Then it's kind of like, remember back in grammar school, and you'd have like, these are the animals, these are the houses, draw a line from that animal that goes and lives in what house, right? And you have all those lines. So you're going to have your current state, you're going to have your desired state or your future state. And you're literally going to say, okay, I need to get from here to here. What does that path look like? You might have 6 different paths you need to draw, but it doesn't mean you have to work on them all at the same time. When it comes to the actual implementing, that's a whole nother phase, okay? So what we're talking about right now is understanding where you need to go, where you are, and how to get there. Now, that's where we're going to start talking a little bit more about that strategic tactical piece, right? So the strategic is understanding it. The tactical is the line, okay? So imagine you want to get from point A to point B on your relationship space, okay? You want to start building relationships with other businesses in your area that maybe serve the same clients that you do. And so, you know what? That person's going to be buying a car. They're also going to be buying accessories. They're going to be, well, go talk to the accessory sellers, right? Start building those relationships, because you may be able to pass people back and forth that have the same area of need. And all of a sudden your business can start entering growth that you never even thought about, because you're building relationships. So what is that tactical approach for that strategic area of relationship, right? And you may have 6 or 7 that you want to pursue. Then you're going to prioritize, right? And so there's the key way of prioritizing is your urgency and your impact. And you can put this into a little chart, but basically the things that end up with the highest urgency and the highest impact you want to do first, because they're going to be more meaningful to your organization, right? And so that's a whole nother lesson for a whole nother day. But really what it means to is, each one of those tactical approaches, you're maturing your business. You're getting yourself towards your strategic goal. You don't implement a strategic goal all at once. It really is broken down into these tactical approaches. The problem is a lot of people don't even approach the strategy. They think that because they're on the tactical line that they're being strategic, but they've not looked at the big picture. So take that time, look at the big picture, and then you can start to say, okay, where are those tactical approaches that I need to make? And how am I going to go at those with the right priority? Now, this whole talk is really about bridging that gap between processes and people. And we've talked a little bit about some process pieces, right? And there are individual processes that you can put within your business. We talked a little bit about technology, right? Are there pieces of technology that can bridge your process gaps? Maybe you're doing tons of things manually that could be done by technology. And then your people could be actually being a lot more resourceful for your organization and being more impactful. The thing is, no matter what organization you run, you impact people. Whether it's the people on your teams, whether it's your customers, whether it's your strategic partners, there are people that you are touching in your relationships. And you need to bring them in and understand them, because their specific needs and their group needs are going to be important for whether or not you're able to be successful with your process approach. Because processes don't run themselves. I wish they did. That would make everything really great, but they don't. So you can't just be like, oh, process is in place, everything's good. There are people running those processes. There are people at both ends and in between to make those processes happen. And if you don't have the right relationships with those people, the processes are going to break down. It doesn't matter how good a process is. If the people can't deliver the process, or aren't willing to, or pushing back because it's change and you haven't addressed that whole change issue, it's going to break down. And so you can't blame the process. You have to blame the fact that, oh, I didn't take the time to understand my people, how they're going to adapt to the process. Is this something that fits naturally with them, or is this something they have to adapt to? Because every person is a little different. I have a book called Color by Design, and we talk about the differences between different temperaments. And somebody who's very gold, which is one of the colors in the book, and somebody who's very orange, which is another color, they're not going to respond to change the same way. And so when you start to really dive in and understand, hey, I understand this person is adverse to change. I understand this person really responds to change well. Well, then you can start to work with the person who responds to change well, get them on board, because then they'll be an encourager to be able to bring others who have a little bit of a harder time adapting. You get that early adopter, and it kind of brings some momentum in. And so if you are making a big change in your process, you want to make sure that you have that buy-in before you jump. Because after you jump, it's, you're kind of playing cleanup, and nobody likes that, right? And so get that buy-in, socialize what you're doing. You're going to have some logical people. Those are going to be your greens. They need to know why you're doing this. They're fine with change if it makes sense. But if you just jump in there and say, hey, we're changing the way you do your things, there's going to be pushback. But if you bring them in, you say, hey, look, this is what we're trying to do. This is why we're trying to do it. That why is key to greens. If you've got people on your team that ask why, they're not necessarily trying to push back on you. They just want to understand, and they want to make sure that it logically makes sense to them. So if you can help them understand that, they'll be right there with you. They'll be one of your best, advocates, as long as they understand what's going on and then it makes sense. They may even have some great ideas to offer that you didn't even think about, that you can then include into the process to really bring it in even better. It's neat when you bring in all these different temperaments into one room. There can be some butting heads, but what you really get, as long as you respect everybody's opinion and where they're coming from, you get some ideas that maybe weren't even in your plan already. So you can take that tactical approach, bring in those members that are going to be your key stakeholders that are going to be running it, make sure they understand it. And then when you do start to roll it out, you're going to have something a whole lot better than if you just had one person develop it and then push it on everybody else. Every business is an evolving change, right? If you're not growing, and that's maybe not your thing, maybe you shouldn't be in business, because you have to be understanding that if you're going to grow, you're going to change. The markets change, people change, needs change, and you have to be able to adapt to that. And hopefully as your business is growing, you're going to need to adapt even your organizational structure, because you can't just have everybody doing the same thing still. You're going to have to grow with your growth rate, right? Implement new technologies to help take off some of that load. And there are a lot of different little things that can be changed along the way. Again, those are all those little tactical things. Once you figure out your strategy from where you are to where you want to be, that's not it. It's not over. Once you get there, it's not like, oh, we reached our destination. It's a continuous evolving thing. They recommend that you actually take a look at your strategic plan at least once a year, to make sure that you still are pointing in the direction you want to go. Because if your market changes, you need to change too. You can't keep pointing due west if all of a sudden your market is a little southwest. You need to adjust with that. And so being able to kind of continue to get that pulse, stop and have planning sessions. Sometimes it feels like, oh gosh, I can't have a planning session because I'm too busy running the operation. That is putting you on a straight path for plateauing, right? You need to take that planning time. You need to dive in and say, okay, I am designating this time to reassess, reevaluate, make sure we're still pointing in the right direction, adjust if necessary, and then, deliver on anything that needs to be adjusted. And so, a kind of a takeaway of everything we just went through is, make sure that you understand where you are. Make sure you understand where you're going. This is your strategic approach. Then you're going to draw lines between to create your tactical approach, each one of those little pieces. Okay? Get your team on board. Bring them in so that they can help be part of this process. You're going to get your better buy-in. You're going to have better adaptation. And overall, you're probably going to have some better ideas come out of that, right? And you're going to want to make sure that as you're evaluating your strategic pieces, that those processes, that they're continuing to be evaluated to make sure that they're facing the direction that makes sense for your organization. And again, building those relationships, whether they're internal, out of your organization, your partnerships, your clients, really get to know them so that when you are working with them, you're being able to speak to them at a level that they can really absorb. You're understanding their needs, their stressors, their strengths, and you're being able to help them be the best that they can be, because that will have them want to pour more into what your mission is in your organization. So I hope that this really provided something that you could really grab onto, take away, and be able to start to look at your organization in a slightly different way and really boost the immunity and immune system for your business.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessie. So if you are watching us live online, this ends our recorded portion. You need to get with us, meet with us to get all the other parts of our group. So Nashville Networking Group on Meetup, LinkedIn, as well as Facebook. Come join us. Also NashvilleNetworkingGroup.com to see our schedule and join our email list to see who our great speakers are, as well as where we are meeting at each week. Hope to see you soon. Thanks, everyone.